Okay, so you've sent over a ton of information on Philippine election law.
It's a lot, right?
Yeah. Legal excerpts, summaries, case notes. Wow.
A whole treasure trove.
It seems like you're getting ready for something big,
Maybe.
dipping your toes into the world of Philippine politics.
Well, knowledge is power, right?
Absolutely. And we're here to help you navigate this complex world. So, where should we begin? What's the most important thing for someone to understand about Philippine election law?
Well, you have to remember, it's not just about winning an election.
There's more to it than that.
Oh, absolutely. It's about ensuring that victory can withstand scrutiny. It's like building a house.
Okay?
You wouldn't build a house on a shaky foundation, would you?
No, definitely not.
The law, it provides that crucial foundation, that rock-solid base for a win that can stand up to challenges. And that's precisely what happened in GR No to 24828.
GR No 24828 sounds pretty official.
What was so important about this case?
Okay, picture this. A candidate wins an election.
Everyone's celebrating, right?
Exactly.
Hmm.
But then, out of nowhere, the victory is challenged.
Oh no, why? What happened?
They weren't fully aware of all the legal details, all the ins and outs. They didn't
Hmm.
have that solid foundation, and that's what happened in GR No 24828.
The cautionary tale, then.
It highlights just how crucial it is for anyone involved in elections, candidates especially, to truly grasp the rules. I mean, it can make or break a campaign.
That's a really good point. I never thought about it like that. It's like showing up.
Are you ready for law school? Get your copy of Handbook for Incoming Law School Students in the Philippines for just 149.99 pesos only. Learn everything you need, from choosing the best pre-law degree, mastering study techniques, to understanding the bar exam. Perfect for aspiring law students. See the description to purchase your copy today and kickstart your law school journey.
For a basketball game, but you've never read the rule book.
You might think you know how to play, but all those fouls and violations, you could be totally clueless.
And just like you want a good coach to guide you through that basketball game, GR No 204-828, it shows how important it is to have a good legal team, people who know the rules inside and out.
Makes sense, someone to navigate all those legal complexities.
Especially in a system as complex as Philippine elections.
Right. So, okay, once you've got your legal dream team, what's next? What should candidates be focusing on?
Transparency.
Okay. Being upfront about your policies, your promises, that kind of thing.
Well, that too, of course, but I'm talking about financial transparency.
Ah, money matters.
Especially when it comes to campaign financing, that's where GR No 115245 comes in.
All right, GR No 115245. Lay it on me. What's the significance of this one?
It emphasizes that candidates must be upfront and meticulous about reporting their campaign finances. Everything has to be accurate and above board. It's all about maintaining public trust.
So it's like keeping your receipts, making sure your expenses add up, only on a much larger scale.
Exactly. And with public scrutiny, it's not just about winning, it's about winning fairly. And GR No 115245, it sets that precedent.
Makes sense. Now, you've been digging through all these cases. I'm sure you've come across some really fascinating stories, some unusual situations. Anything particularly unique or unexpected stand out?
Oh, absolutely. Have you heard of Leoncio Ho Ben Louis?
Leoncio Ho Ben Louis. The name rings a bell, but I can't quite place it.
His case, it's documented in GR No L5522. It's a perfect example of how even seemingly small actions can have huge consequences in election law.
Okay, now you've got me intrigued. Tell me more about this Leoncio Ho Ben Louis and GR No L5522.
So Ben Louis, he was a Chinese citizen, and he was just about to become a Filipino citizen.
Oh, wow. A big moment.
Huge. But there was a catch, a technicality. During his residency, he had participated in an election. He voted.
Okay.
He wasn't aware that this seemingly insignificant act would legally prevent him from obtaining citizenship.
Oh, no. That's awful. Talk about being tripped up by a technicality.
I know. This case really underscores the importance of understanding every single detail of election law.
Prepare for your exams with 327 cases penned by Associate Justice Amy C. Lazaro Javier, organized by subject, political law, labor law, taxation law, and more. Includes quizzes and flashcards for effective study. Ready to elevate your review? Check the description now to purchase your copy and ace your exams.
It's not enough to have good intentions. You really need to know the rules of the game.
Absolutely. It's a good reminder we're not just talking about abstract legal principles here.
Yeah.
These are real-life scenarios with real-life consequences.
Precisely. And that's what makes this so important, what makes it so fascinating. We're talking about something that has a direct impact on people's lives, on the very fabric of a democratic society.
For sure. Now, we've talked about the importance of understanding the law, having good legal counsel, and financial transparency. But what about the whole, the spirit of the law versus the letter of the law? How does that come into play in Philippine election law?
That's the question that's been debated for centuries. It's the classic struggle. On one hand, you have the will of the people, and on the other, the integrity of the electoral process itself. And sometimes they clash. And that's where you see these really interesting cases like GR No's 128H54223705 and 209286.
So it's about finding that balance.
Exactly. Respecting the voter's choice while making sure everything is done by the book. These cases dive into the nitty-gritty of candidate qualifications. Can technicalities overrule the choice of the electorate? It's about determining where to draw that line and how to interpret the law in a way that upholds both the spirit and the letter of democracy.
That makes a lot of sense. Now, we can't talk about Philippine elections without mentioning COMELEC.
Of course.
Tell me more about their role, what they do.
So the Commission on Elections, COMELEC, they're like the guardians of the entire election process in the Philippines.
Okay, so they are the referees making sure everyone's playing fair.
Precisely. And their responsibilities are massive, from overseeing voter registration and party accreditation to handling election offenses. They even have the power to deputize security forces if needed. It's a huge, huge undertaking.
It sounds like it. That's a lot of responsibility. I mean, their role in making sure that elections are free and orderly, honest, peaceful, and credible, that's essential.
It is, absolutely. They're the backbone of the entire electoral process. They make sure every vote counts and that the will of the people is reflected accurately.
Now, we've talked about legal precedents, how past rulings can have an impact on present-day cases. Can you give us a specific example of how that works?
Oh, absolutely. Let's look at GR No's 18849 and 47903. You see a fascinating evolution of legal interpretation there. So in 1922, GR No at 18849, it dealt with the representation of political parties on election boards.
Okay, so very specific.
Very specific. Now, fast forward to 1940, GR number 47903. This one was about minority representation on their same election board.
Okay, so similar but different.
Exactly. But here's the thing. The court actually relied on the precedent set by that 1922 ruling to make their decision in the 1940 case.
Wow, so it's like building on what came before it.
Precisely. It shows how legal precedents create this framework for consistency and predictability in the legal system.
Fascinating. Now, while we're really digging into all the legal specifics here, I think it's essential to acknowledge that there's a human side to all of this as well. We see cases like GR No's 24828 and 1023705, and they touch on not just the letter of the law, but also ethical considerations, the importance of sound legal counsel, those human elements.
And you're absolutely right. Laws don't exist in a vacuum. They're meant to guide human behavior, to ensure fairness. And that often means thinking about the ethics of actions, even within a legal framework.
It's like that saying, just because you can doesn't mean you should.
Exactly. GR No 223705, for example, focuses on fair campaigning practices. It stresses that there is an ethical dimension candidates should consider, even beyond the specific rules. It's not just about winning. It's about campaigning with integrity and respecting the process.
It's about doing the right thing.
Precisely. Now, are you ready for some of those intriguing details I promised?
Oh, I'm always up for a good legal thriller.
Yeah.
What else have you got?
This one is a real head-scratcher. Remember I mentioned Eddie? Orsayos fight against the inclusion of airsoft guns in the election gun ban.
Wait, airsoft guns? Those toy guns that shoot plastic pellets?
The very same.
How on earth did they get mixed up in Philippine election law?
Right. It seems strange, but it perfectly illustrates how legal interpretations have to keep up with advancements in technology. GR No 190779 ADDI. SEO is challenging the classification of airsoft guns as firearms.
So it's a matter of defining what a firearm is.
Exactly. And the court agreed, at least partially, with ADDI SEO. They ultimately excluded airsoft replicas from the ban.
Wow. It goes to show you, the law is constantly evolving.
It is. It's a constantly changing landscape. But speaking of evolving, let's take a little trip back in time, explore some political maneuvering from the history books.
Ooh, a history lesson.
Get your handbook for incoming law school students now. This essential guide covers everything from study techniques to managing stress, plus insider tips on exams and the bar. For just 149.99 pesos only, be fully prepared for the law school journey. See the description to purchase your copy today.
I'm game. What have you got for us?
This one goes back to the rivalry between Partido Nacionalista Consolidado and the Partido Democrata, two political powerhouses.
I'm sensing a showdown. What were they battling over?
Representation on election boards.
So it was a behind-the-scenes battle for control.
Exactly. This case, GR 42139, it shows how the political stage, it's always been this dynamic and, let's face it, often contentious arena.
And it proves that the desire for power and influence, well, it pops up in some unexpected places.
That's for sure. Some things never change. But let's bring ourselves back to the present and talk about a more recent issue. This one brings together technology and electoral rights.
Okay, what's on the agenda now?
GR 221318. This one dealt with mandatory biometrics in voter registration.
Ah, that was a big one. A lot of debate about that. It makes you think about how it might affect voter participation, especially in the Philippines, where, not everyone has the same access to technology.
Absolutely. It's a complex issue with no easy answers.
So what was the court's decision on this whole mandatory biometrics thing?
They ultimately upheld it. They decided it struck a balance between preventing fraud and ensuring the process remained accessible to all eligible voters.
Finding that middle ground.
It's a delicate balance, but it requires a lot of thought, a lot of consideration about the potential impact.
It's incredible how many different aspects of elections there are to consider. We've only just scratched the surface, haven't we?
We've only just begun. But before we dive into the next layer of this fascinating world, I want to leave you with something to think about. We've been talking a lot about legal precedent, how those past rulings can shape the future, but the Philippines is a living, breathing country. It's constantly evolving.
That's a good point. So how can our listener keep that in mind?
Right. As you're looking back at these legal cases, think about this.
Are you ready for law school? Get your copy of Handbook for Incoming Law School Students in the Philippines for just 149.99 pesos only. Learn everything you need, from choosing the best pre-law degree, mastering study techniques, to understanding the bar exam. Perfect for aspiring law students. See the description to purchase your copy today and kickstart your law school journey.
How might those social, cultural, even technological changes influence how these laws are interpreted and applied in the future? What new legal issues might come up? It's something to really consider.
It really is. The law is constantly adapting, especially in a field as fast-paced as elections. But okay, enough teasing. Let's get back to those cases. What other quirks of election law did you uncover?
Well, let's talk about the use of public funds. Now, that always gets people fired up, especially during election season.
Oh yeah, that's a big one. Candidate accused of misusing public funds. You see that headline all the time. But what does the law actually say about all this?
Well, GR 12A054, it tackles this issue head-on. Basically, it emphasizes that public resources, they can't be used for partisan political activities. That's a big no-no.
Which makes sense. Using government money to fund your campaign. It's like using your company credit card to buy yourself a new car and saying it's a business expense.
Exactly. A clear abuse of power. And speaking of ensuring a level playing field, let's talk about election offenses. You had some interesting notes about the duty to report violations. What's GR 136781 all about?
Oh, that one really stood out to me. It's not just about following the rules yourself. It's about, speaking up when you see others breaking them.
Precisely. Election integrity, it's a team effort. GR 136781, it shows that reporting suspected violations, it's not just encouraged, it's crucial. It's about protecting the whole system.
It's like being a good neighbor. If you see something shady going down next door, you call the cops, right? You don't just ignore it.
Exactly. Speaking up is so important for a healthy democracy. Now let's shift gears a bit. What about party lists?
Ah, yes, party lists, all those different groups vying for a seat at the congressional table. I bet that gets complicated.
Oh, you have no idea. We've got a whole stack of cases here, GR knows. 147589, 136781, 177508, and 23766.
Wow, that's a lot. What are some of the biggest issues that these cases have dealt with?
One of the big ones is representation. Who should these party lists represent? The idea was to give a voice to those marginalized sectors, but it's not always clear who fits into that category.
I can imagine.
And then there are the regulations. How much control should there be? Should there be limits on the number of party list representatives in Congress?
It's about finding that balance, right?
Mm-hmm.
Making space for marginalized voices, but also making sure the system is fair for everyone.
Exactly. It's a complex system, that's for sure. But these cases, they offer a fascinating glimpse into how the courts have tried to deal with these complexities.
It makes you realize that the law is constantly evolving, changing. It's a response to real-world situations and challenges.
It really is. It's all about finding a way to apply those legal principles to the world around us.
It's amazing to think about how all these different areas, airsoft guns, biometrics, they all connect back to Philippine election law.
It's all connected, isn't it? But speaking of connections, let's circle back to Leoncio Ben Louis, remember. He was denied citizenship because he voted during his residency.
Oh, right. He got tripped up by that technicality.
His case, GR No, L5522, it wasn't just about that one little detail. It highlighted the connection between participating in elections and someone's immigration status.
So it shows how different areas of law, they can overlap in unexpected ways. It's like those Venn diagrams we used to do in school.
Exactly. And while we're on the topic of unexpected overlaps, let's revisit our airsoft gun case one last time, GR known 120779.
Oh, I'm always up for a good airsoft gun debate. What else can we learn from that case?
Well, it goes beyond just defining what a firearm is, right? It's about understanding the purpose behind a law, the intent.
So in that case, it was to prevent violence during elections.
Exactly. The court realized that including airsoft guns, well, it didn't really make sense in terms of achieving that goal.
So they had to consider the bigger picture.
Exactly. They had to interpret the law in a way that made sense in the real world.
That makes sense. Now, speaking of making sense of things, how can someone even begin to grasp all this legal precedent? There's so much to it.
I know, it can feel overwhelming, but think of it like building a house. Each legal precedent, it's like a brick, right? And all those bricks together, they form the foundation.
Okay, so which cases are those foundational bricks when it comes to understanding Philippine election law?
Well, one that stands out is GR Now, 18849, all the way back from 1922. That case set a precedent that had a ripple effect on so many others that came after it.
It's amazing how one ruling can have such a lasting impact.
It really is. It shows how these landmark decisions, they shape the legal landscape for years to come.
This has been an incredible deep dive. We've covered so much ground, from campaign finances and party lists to, well, airsoft guns.
And we can't forget COMLEC.
Right. It's been fascinating to learn about how everything works, all the behind-the-scenes stuff most people don't even think about.
It's the foundation of a fair and democratic process. But before we wrap up, there's one more thing I want to leave you with.
Ooh, a final thought. I like it. What is it?
Think about the role technology plays in all of this. We've talked about biometrics, online campaigning, and who knows, maybe even online voting in the future. That's a whole other ballgame.
It really is. It feels like the law is constantly trying to catch up with all the technological advancements.
It is a constant evolution. So as you continue to explore Philippine election law, think about this. How can we ensure fairness and transparency and accessibility in our increasingly digital world?
That's a great question. It seems like the only constant in election law is change.
You got that right.
Well, to our listener, we hope you've enjoyed this deep dive as much as we have. It's been a real eye-opener, and we hope these insights will be helpful as you navigate the fascinating world of Philippine election law. Until next time.